So Angel Heart, 1987, directed by Alan Parker, a paranormal horror, mystery, thriller. It's a movie that crosses a lot of different genre boundaries. You know, back in the VHS days, you might see this video on the action shelf, on the drama shelf, on the thriller and suspense shelf. Remember when video stores have, well, maybe you don't remember, but some video stores used to have like a thriller shelf or a suspense shelf. And that was like, it's not quite horror, but it's not quite action. Usually it was like the erotic thrillers. It was like the Fred Olen Ray, Jim Wynorski, like action sex movies would show up there. And then they might put, you know, like Angel Heart or something like that. A nostalgic movie. It does take me back to the VHS years. 1987. It was back in the days it was the high days of the VHS era, of the home video era. It was when movies were still kind of movies, when they would be showing in theaters, and then you'd stay up on a Sunday night or Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon for Siskel and Ebert. And Siskel and Ebert would talk about the movies coming out this week, The Fly, and Angel Heart, or whatever, Purple Rain, and it was just, and it felt like, wow, this is a great time to be alive and watch movies. And then I was so young when Angel Heart came out. I didn't go see it in the theater, but you have to wait, and you would wait like a year, sometimes literally a little over a year, and then it would come out on VHS, and then you would rent it. And Angel Heart was one of those types of movies. It takes me back, I can still in my mind trace out the black and white newspaper advertisements for something like Angel Heart. But as I said, a kind of a horror mystery, a horror noir type of film, full of the noir tropes of the detectives and the dames and the convoluted schemes. In this case, the detective is Harry Angel, played by Mickey Rourke. And Harry Angel is in this kind of low rent New York area detective. The film is a period piece set in 1955, and Harry Angel is hired by this mysterious character Louis Cypher, played by Robert De Niro, in a special appearance by Robert De Niro. It's a special appearance, but he shows up pretty much throughout the film. He has about 4 scenes in the film. And so Louis Cypher wants Harry Angel to track down this character, this crooner from the 40s, this guy Johnny Favorite, real name Liebling, which I think in German does mean like favorite or special or something like that. But Johnny Favorite was a crooner, and he had an agreement, some kind of an agreement with this Louis Cypher. And Johnny Favorite went into the war, was shell-shocked, was damaged in the war, came back home, was institutionalized in this hospital. And he's kind of been, Louis Cypher's kind of lost track of him, and he wants Johnny Favorite to go find this character. So this causes Harry Angel to embark on this journey, which will take him into the bowels of Harlem, will eventually take him down south into New Orleans, and he will go, and then straight into the bowels of hell, as everyone that he meets on his journey to discover the horrifying truth of Johnny Favorite and what happened back in the 40s. Everyone he finds kind of begins to wind up dead, and all signs are pointing to Harry Angel. So Harry Angel has to uncover the mystery before the coppers catch up to him. So it's full of dark corners. It's a noir thriller. It's that kind of feel, beautifully shot by Alan Parker. I mean, Alan Parker, these British filmmakers, and he has the production designers and everybody who worked on his earlier films. Michael Sarrazin shot it. And so the film has this beautiful period look. I mean, the dirt. I mean, there was the early scene when Harry Angel goes into his kind of low rent detective's office, and it's full of clutter and garbage. And then there's one scene where he goes into his desk drawer to get a pen to write something down, and he opens the drawer, and you just see it's full of just like a switchblade and a gun and all this garbage, which it adds to the kind of the texture of the scene and builds the character of Harry Angel. And then there's all these little touches of period dialogue where he's talking about, one time he's talking to his character, and he's like, well, just let me do my thing, and then you give me the information, and then you can shoot yourself to Palookaville. He's talking to this drug addicted doctor. Palookaville. And then there's a scene where he's in Coney Island speaking to this guy's wife, and she said something like, don't be a Gazoonie, or something. I was like, what the hell is that? This woman who's in the water, who, by the way, that original character was played by Shirley Stoller of The Honeymoon Killer. She was cast in that role, and then she was in the water, and she was hit by some really ice cold wave, and she had to be given medical attention. She didn't want to go in the water. She refused to go back in the water. So they got her double to do the scene. So interesting, full of interesting actors in this film as well. I mean, Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke, really, by this time, he was kind of being typecast as these kind of fallen, broken, imperfect, kind of down and out characters, and I mean, he'd already done, like Barfly and 9.5 Weeks, and he was always these kind of like Body Heat. He was like the criminal in Body Heat, and all these, these roles, and then he was also, there was an element of him that was also kind of like the erotic thriller, like an R-rated film, which might have an unrated VHS release, which had like scenes of this thing and 9.5 Weeks, and later on did Wild Orchid and those type of movies, which were, again, kind of keeping in with the kind of his sleaziness. And throughout the 90s, and then in the early 2000s, again, he played another kind of underdog character in The Wrestler. He had kind of a career resurgence, again playing the ultimate underdog, but he just fits into this role like a glove. It's interesting to read about the origins of this film, based on a book, Fallen Angel, from 1978. And then around 1980, they wanted to make the movie, but it kind of got into like a studio hell, turnaround hell, and it was like one of those things where they wanted they wanted originally Marlon Brando at some point to play the Louis Cypher character. Robert Redford was in talks to play the Harry Angel character. And it was always like in the late 70s and the early 80s, it was like Robert Redford doing everything. Godfather, star Robert Redford in the Al Pacino role. Superman, Robert Redford. It was, you didn't know, in this era, you don't really realize how in demand Robert Redford was, how big of a star he was, that he was basically in consideration for every major film role. So it was kind of in the talks in 1980 to make this film, but then they didn't really get around to it until 1985. Alan Parker had been trying to work on it since 1980. He eventually got it and directed it. But Mickey Rourke is just perfect. He's this perfect New York character. He fits like a glove into this role of this kind of this guy who's just kind of fallen apart. And at the end of the film, the last scenes where he's just, it seems like he must have been like drinking for like 10 hours the night before, screaming, because his vocal cords just, they sound legitimately like shot. Like this is a guy who's totally like broken. I mean, like Johnny Depp broken, falling apart, or a regular actor broken and falling apart. There's nobody who can play somebody who is just screwed up, broken, fallen apart like Mickey Rourke. I mean, the guy is just like, looks like he's like dragged himself, through the gutter for a whole day, and he comes in and it's just authenticity. That's him. And then of course Louis Cyphre, Robert De Niro playing this rather sinister character with the nails and the I love his introduction in that kind of Harlem church where you don't see his face, but you hear him. You see his twisting the cane with his long fingernail. Incredible. Incredible. And I mean, from the beginning, it's Angel, you got the claw, you got his, long finger. There's something kind of paranormal going on, and I mean, the movie plays as a really good horror film. It has lots of dream, nightmare imagery kind of interspersed throughout the film, and it feels like this kind of nightmarish journey. It really, the film really is reminiscent of a film which came out about a few years after this, called Jacob's Ladder, which is a very kind of similar film with a lead character played by Tim Robbins in this case, who's kind of like has a kind of fractured reality, and it's a kind of journey into hell. Though unlike Jacob's Ladder, which kind of has all this dream imagery and this nightmare imagery, Angel Heart is very specific. It has that nightmare dream imagery, but then there's a lot of exposition. And Alan Parker, I think, was very careful to not lose the audience. He didn't want to lose the audience. Like, I mean, there is a scene toward the beginning of the film where there's this exposition about Johnny Favor and who he was and what he did, which is, the exposition is delivered by this female reporter character, and it's kind of delivered in a bedroom scene while she's taking off her clothes, and a way to keep the exposition interesting. But even if you miss anything, there's literally a scene directly after that where, and Alan Parker talks about how he added this scene later on because he wanted things to make clear. There's a scene where Harry Angel is just sitting at his desk, and he has a tape recorder, and he just transcribes into this tape recorder everything that's happened in the movie and what's going on and what he's about to do. He explains the entire film so far, and it's like, I mean, I thought that was very thoughtful of him. Even though I think that the last scene with Cypher, the last scene is it was maybe a little bit too much. I think that was a little bit, because they have one last scene with Cypher where he kind of explains everything, and I don't think you really needed that. I think that last scene, you could have cut out Louis Cypher. You could have just had, Johnny, Harry Angel in that broken apartment, and you could have just had the hands of Louis Cypher pick up that record. That's all you need. You see his hands, because you know who it is when you see the fingernails. Louis Cypher put on the record, and then you could have cut out all that stuff. But I mean, I understand that, you had to have the whole but I don't think, the film's almost 2 hours long. It's about 114 minutes. You could do a 90-minute version of this film cutting out all of that exposition, I think, and just have the nightmare imagery, and then you'd kind of have something that looked like Jacob's Ladder. But Jacob's Ladder, also directed by a British filmmaker, I believe, and from the same studio, Carol Co, and a lot of the same guys involved. And I kind of like Jacob's Ladder a little bit more. So you've got Mickey Rourke, Robert De Niro, and then Lisa Bonet. Lisa Bonet is, again, kind of the triumvirate in this film. Lisa Bonet, television actress of The Cosby Show, and that was the big controversial element of this movie. Lisa Bonet playing this voodoo priestess who gets naked, and there was a very controversial scene in the movie, the sex scene, and it really apparently ruptured Lisa Bonet's relationship to Bill Cosby, who was, again, America's dad, America's family. This was The Cosby Show, and this was this was at a time when television was really television, when tens of millions of people would watch every week, and it had a real significance culturally. And here is this, this daughter of Bill Cosby's all-American family, doing this, movie where she's getting naked. It was very, very controversial. That was very controversial. That was on everybody's mind. And I don't think she was fired from the Cosby Show, but it was one of those things where it ruptured her relationship. I'm sure Lisa Bonet knew something that we didn't. Maybe she did, and she wasn't fired, but I think it was one of those things where it was like on Three's Company with Suzanne Summers, where she did these scenes where she's like on the phone, and she's like every few episodes she would like call in. She's like, "Hey, Dad, I'm at college. I'm having a good time," because she'd just shoot her scenes and she'd show up for one day, and she'd do these little tiny 2-minute scenes where there'd be a phone call, and it'd be Lisa Bonet on the phone in a little set, she'd just do her scenes. And so they kept the character alive on the show that way. They didn't kill off the character. They kept it going, but they really distanced themselves. Bill Cosby, the all-American dad, distanced himself, who later on exposed himself as the ultimate hypocrite. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. But in 1987, he was still America's dad, and Lisa Bonet was on the outs, was on the ultimate outs. Still an interesting looking film, an underrated movie. A movie that you don't think a lot about. Again, it's just that wonderful film. And it's on, it was released, of course, on DVD multiple times, and a special edition DVD, and then Blu-ray, and now it's on Amazon Prime streaming. The Amazon Prime is it's a little bright, I think. The HD transfer is a little bright. I did at one point see a DVD from UK or Germany, Kinevelt, and it was kind of almost dark. It was almost too dark. But the Blu-ray, I guess I'm assuming the Blu-ray transfer is the same as the Amazon Prime transfer. That's a little bright, but the VHS was almost like impenetrable. There's scenes throughout the film. There's this imagery with these elevators, and and it would just be like this analog buzzing elevator. It was almost kind of scary seeing the thing in this degraded VHS form, because we rented on VHS, and my dad made a copy of it, because you'd have what you'd do back in the VHS days. You'd rent a VHS and then make an EP copy of it, and you had one tape that had like 4 or 5 movies in EP. And I watched I watched parts of it, but I never watched the whole thing. I mean, I never even got to, like, as a kid. I mean, it was scary. I mean, the film is a scary movie. It is, I think, primarily a horror film. It was in some quarters promoted in Fangoria, but this was, again, the paranormal thriller thing. I mean, even the trailer bills it as like Exorcist meets Chinatown in a way, and it kind of is in a way. And but the trailer, bills it as that. But I mean, but they were still kind of distancing themselves. Oh, it's not a horror movie. It was one of those things. Oh, it's a thriller. Or it's a drama. It's like Richard Donner, who doesn't consider The Omen to be a horror movie. Okay, all right, buddy. All right. It's a horror, and it's a scary horror movie with the heartbeat, boom, 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 which Alan Parker started doing on Midnight Express, and then carried over in here. And then now there's almost every third or fourth horror movie has the heartbeats. Scary as hell. Scary as hell. The little moment, you're gonna burn for this, Angel. Oh man, scary as hell. Scary as hell. Scary as hell movie. It would have been interesting to see Marlon Brando as Louis Cypher. I keep, ever since I read that he was in consideration, it would have been interesting. He would have been kind of less a reliable, probably, person than Robert De Niro. It would also have been interesting to see Robert De Niro as Johnny Favorite, Harry Angel, the lead detective character. It would have been interesting to see him as Harry, because to see kind of an older guy, a slightly older guy. I mean, Robert De Niro was not that old in 1987, but even to see a slightly older guy would have been kind of interesting. I was thinking about, like, the film is set in 1955, and then it was shot in 1987. And I started adding it up, and I realized that there is as much time that's passed from 1955 to 87 than has passed from 87 to 2018. But it's weird because in 1986, 1987, doing a movie based on a story set in 1955, it seemed like it was a completely other world. It seemed like it was just completely a different time and place and everything. But if you were to, in 2018, do a movie set in 1987, it doesn't seem like there would be a big difference. It doesn't seem like there'd be a huge difference. It feels like there hasn't been as much change and innovation or observable change from 1987 to 2018 as there was from 55 to 87. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about. It feels like time has kind of slowed down in some ways, even though, of course, all of our telecommunications, our cell phones, our computers, it's all kind of different than 1987. But we kind of had a lot of that stuff in 87. But I mean, the scenes of Johnny Favorite going into New Orleans and going down, and it's almost like going south, going into the kind of the pit, the abyss, falling into and the constant rain, the texture of the rain, incredible. And really it's a special appearance by Charlotte Rampling as Margaret Krusemark. She has a wonderful little role and a few little scenes. She has fewer scenes than Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro really is a character in the film. I don't know if they wanted to bill him as special appearance, just not to pay him as much. But I mean, he really shows up. He kind of bookends elements of throughout the film and kind of sends Johnny Angel on his journeys. But Charlotte Rampling was really she gives a little class to the movie. She has a wonderful little scene with Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke's such a good actor. You watch this movie and realize he's such a good actor. As I said, he plays a guy who's fallen apart so well. And there's scenes where he's with Robert De Niro, and he's like, I realized the second scene he's with Robert De Niro, where he's in the restaurant, and he's like, hey, some guy died. I can't be a part of this. And you're looking at him, and he's doing everything. He's as good as Robert De Niro. You're looking at Robert De Niro, who's like considered one of the best actors of his generation, and then Mickey Rourke, who is they're playing a tennis match. They're both at such a high level, and so it's so weird to see Mickey Rourke kind of go into the, it did 9.5 Weeks and Wild Orchid and doing these kind of, I mean, because he could play Louis Cyphre, he could play a high-end character, but it's just, I think he got typecast. I don't know a lot about Mickey Rourke. I mean, I think he was into kind of like boxing. He was in a different headspace there. So, but I think he could play a lot more high-end characters than now. He's kind of like. For a while, he was like the American Klaus Kinski. It seemed like he'd just show in a movie. He'd just pop up, like in that movie, The Rainmaker, where we just got to pop up and do some weird stuff and then just kind of run off, And he did The Wrestler, and then he went right back to doing weird movies. Well, he was good in the Sin City, right? I don't know. Interesting film. A film worth checking out. A film worth searching out. A noir thriller, a paranormal mystery, a suspense film, whatever you want to call it. A film very controversial in its own day for the sex scenes, for the violence. Yeah, I guess it kind of did. I think there was a rated and unrated cut. And then you see in certain magazines and online, there are certain scenes, certain shots that look like cut scenes, like additional gore, like the Cypher's lawyer, wine sap. We see a bloody aftermath of what happened to him, and also the female reporter. We see her burnt. There's scenes of Lisa Bonet burnt, but I don't think there were full scenes of that. I mean, I may be wrong, but it seems like there's so much dream imagery throughout the film. I think these shots that we're seeing photos of are just kind of like, image pops. They're pops because there was like an alternate sex scene, I believe, which I think was maybe a TV version or an alternate cut, which is kind of a clothes scene. People are pretty, Bonet and Harry Angel are kind of wearing clothes, but there's scenes of Johnny Angel getting damaged in the war, getting bombed and fire. And I think some of the fire scenes, some of the fire shots of not Mark, but the female reporter and Bonet, I think were supposed to be kind of part of that, because the whole thing is that these nightmare dream sequences are full of kind of death and chaos and disorder so I think some of the shots, some of the stuff that wasn't in the film that you're seeing production photos of, I think that was just kind of like image pops. It wasn't meant to be a whole scene. I don't know. I could be wrong, but an interesting film. Yeah. I still like Jacob's Ladder, maybe a little bit more or less, but maybe that's just because Jacob's Ladder I was a little bit older. I was actually watching it. I was reading about it when it came out. I was reading about it in Cinefantastique and Fangoria, and I was a little bit too young to kind of experience angel horror. It was kind of it was kind of taboo, read about it, I'd watch it, Siskel and Ebert about it. I was like, oh, that's kind of scary. I'd watch the trailer. Oh, I don't know what, but watching it now when I'm older, I really enjoy it.
On behalf of the motion picture industry, welcome to the world of home video entertainment.